The Deck Network. Build a deck.
Bam! This is the Deck Network, and I'm your host, Mike Danzilio, and we have Mr. Matt here.
The co-host with the most, Matt Dalton. Remember, here at the Deck Network, it's all decks all the time.
Okay, Matt, today's
what are we talking about?
show today is about deck stairs, or stairs on a deck.
Okay.
We're going to talk a little bit about the codes, the parameters that they need to be built at, and then we're going to talk a little bit about hardware to be used on the stairs.
Seems like a relatively important part of the deck. Might not be the fanciest portion of what you're designing, but it's.
I don't know.
You want to make sure you can hold some weight. A lot of times you're going up and down the steps with a piano or an elephant.
Yeah, well,
you want to make sure they can hold.
They have to be strong enough to hold some weight. Like Matt said, either a piano or a refrigerator going up, or in Matt's case, a keg of beer.
A keg of beer, of course.
Okay, here is a set of stairs that we have here at the Deck Network studio.
This is a peek right into the headquarters of the epicenter of all things decking.
This would be considered more of a winder stairs, and there's some code requirements for a winding set of stairs. There are also spiral stairs, but we won't get into that because that's a very specialized
That looks really nice, and you got to figure you're going to do something a little bit fancier here at the Deck Network when you did your stairs, so it's going to be a little bit above the average. That's what we like to do here at the Deck Network.
At the store, at downstairs, we like people when they come in, because we're in New York, and sometimes it's crazy and hectic around here.
Love us or hate us, we're New Yorkers.
People will come in and they were in traffic, or someone was giving them, who knows, but
they got cut off.
And they want to come in, and I want to change their state. When they come to there, I want them to think about things in a little bit different manner.
It's interesting.
And so that's why I have some of the features, the waterfall, the chimney, and of course, all the decks that are set up.
This is decking zen, I'm telling you. You walk in here and you just start thinking about, hey, I want to do that. I want to build this. And, odds are you're not going to be able to, but we'll show you the right way.
We have an old friend, Glenn Mathewson.
We know him.
He is a building inspector in the state of Colorado, and he is also the decking or the code consultant for NADRA, which is the North American Deck and Rail Association.
We had him on the program just last year, I believe, right?
He's been a little bit at a time on it right there. He's out west, and I'd like to have him more often, but I don't know what these. Sometimes it's just hard to get a hold of people on, he's out there, but we'd love to have him on Skype every once in a while.
Bring him on, yeah.
But let's get a little video with him when I was in Chicago, or we were in Chicago.
I wasn't invited, but you know the story on that.
Okay, we're off to the video.
Glenn.
All right, we are right now with Glenn Mathewson from NADRA. Glenn is the author of the reference book that I always use when I want to know about codes for decks. You've seen it on the show plenty of times. Glenn, great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, it's been a busy year this year, being very involved with the creation of the 2015 IRC.
Yep.
A little bit ahead of time, but that code has been developed throughout this whole year, and was very involved with that, trying to make sure that the decking industry was well represented with the new codes that are going to be coming down in 2015. And I'm happy to say that we've got some good codes in there. There's nothing that the decking industry should fear, and in fact, there's going to be a lot of helpful new standardization that's going to help keep everybody on a level playing field and allow builders, as they move from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and inspector to be able to have more consistent application and interpretation of those codes. And so strange as it may be to many builders, we need more standardization for decks to allow us to be able to be at a level playing field with all builders, those that don't have as much experience and those that have more experience, and have the inspectors referencing the same expectations. And this is going to be a big push forward for the industry, and I'm happy to say that the 2015 IRC is going to be a much better version of that code for our industry.
Okay, so any of you homeowners that want to build your own deck, and of course there are plenty of you that you want to know exactly the proper way to do it, so you would go to nadra.org and look for the book, and I'll have it when we have the show, and because that is I look at it all the time just to see some more about it. Do you have a website with what you do?
Yeah, you can go to nadra.org. That's the industry association that definitely represents the industry in all aspects. You can also go to deckcodes.com, where there's some personal commentary about when I wrote the book, the purpose for the book, as well as just more information about deck codes.
All right, Matt. There was Glenn.
Always a wealth of knowledge. Glenn does a great job every time we have him on the program. No wonder why last time he was on we had over 400,000 views of that video, because he's compelling. People want to watch him, a lot like yourself and myself, Mike.
Okay. All right, so let's get into some of the definitions.
This is Glenn's book.
Yeah, this is Glenn's book that he just spoke about.
It's like a textbook almost.
Well,
of decking.
it is.
This is like we're going to be going into decking stair college here.
We want to get a little introduction, and then we'll talk about codes and what it's supposed to be.
Great.
It is a rare occurrence to find a deck that does not contain a change of elevation, be it a step down from a door to a deck or a step out of the backyard from the deck. Stairways and sometimes ramps will most likely be present. And when a person ascends or descends a stairway, his or her mind quickly recognizes the rhythm created by the person's legs and body. After only a few steps, he or she will subconsciously begin to expect the next step to be in or about the same spot as the previous.
It's interesting.
Now, what happens when you wake up in the middle of the night and you need your
a yoo-hoo or a ho-ho. Yeah. It's interesting when you think about that because it seems like the mind, I'm not fully awake and I'm just kind of making the steps down to get to the fridge. That's
because subconsciously you know that that's where they're supposed to be.
So that's why you need to keep the spacing equal.
Yes, and so, okay. A stairway, one or more flights of stairs, either exterior or interior, with the necessary landings and platforms connecting them to and from continuous and uninterrupted passages. Okay, that's getting a little legal mumbo-jumbo in there, but stairs nonetheless can be somewhat complicated, so we're going to try to give a little bit more background on what it is, and this is a good place to start here.
Lots of stairs
now,
there.
This deck has a deck up at the top. It looks like two intermediate. Okay, this single stairway, let's get this thing to bother me here. This single stairway composed of 3 flights of stairs, 2 intermediate landings, and a top and bottom landing connects 2 levels of the deck and the patio below by an uninterrupted path.
Okay.
So we have some more definitions in here, and let's.
Glenn shows a pretty extreme example of the decking there with all different levels of stairs. It's a good way to look at it.
And then, he's going to. Okay, let's just get right into here.
Okay.
Stairs can be constructed of many different materials and with many different methods, all of which could satisfy the geometric and structural requirements of the IRC, that's the International Residential Code. Even in the category of common deck stairs, there are more methods used across the United States than could be feasibly included in a model code. The IRC does not provide any pre-engineered prescriptive method for the structural design of stair construction, but it does provide parameters that must be satisfied in the design. So that's saying that you can go from where we are here in the Northeast or to where Glenn is in Colorado or to California or Seattle, and things are made a little bit differently.
So there's not one way to build a set of stairs.
Yeah, a set of stairs. We've come up with some methods here in the Northeast that seem to work well for us as long as they're satisfying the code.
The parameters that are set for it.
Yes. The attachment of a flight of stairs to a deck must be accompanied in a manner or accomplished in a manner that will resist forces in both the vertical and horizontal directions. Deck stairs cannot be attached with toenails.
Where's our nail? We got a nail somewhere. I got my coffee.
Toenail, meaning that you can't bang it in on the side like that. In the old days, people used to cut a stringer for the stairs and just toenail it into that. There's too much weight.
I was going to say, you figure the weight over time would be pulling that away from
also,
it. Centrifugal force.
With toenails installed in a manner where they may be subject to withdrawal. Nails are considered subject to withdrawal when they are installed such that their load-resistant capabilities are in the direction parallel to the shank of the nail. So we want it so the direction of the load and the shank of the nail, they're not parallel, so they got to be perpendicular to it. So it's got to go into like this.
You get a good connection.
Yeah, that's why we have all these little stair hardwares and little types of things that we'll get into a little bit later. When they are installed such that their load-resistant capabilities are in the direction parallel to the shank of the nail, nails are primarily designed and intended to be so that they resist loads utilizing the shear strength of the nail perpendicular to the shank. Now this is to get an engineer has calculated that it takes a certain amount of weight to shear off this nail, to break it off.
Okay.
And that's what the strength of the nail is. And in this particular case, it's probably close to 1,000 or 1,200 pounds per nail.
Per nail. So then you're multiplying.
Yeah, so you have a double it. You're going to be a lot more than that. Okay, so the width of the stairs. These are the common questions. This is probably the 3rd or 4th most common question about a stair.
Okay.
Stairways shall not be less than 36 inches in clear width at all points above the permitted handrail height. That's above the handrail height, greater than or equal to 36 inches from here to here.
Okay.
And below the required headroom height. Handrails shall not project more than 4.5 inches on either side of the stairway. That means that the rail can't go out more than 4.5 inches, including 4.5 inches on either side of the stairwell.
Does that have the treads and the landings?
Well, yeah, but you're above the tread in any landing. You're here, so that's the wall.
Okay.
And that's, if it's 36 inches, the total width, and you have to be less than 4.5 inches.
Okay. It's involved. This is involved stuff, but it's important.
Okay. 4.5 inches on either side of the stairway, and the minimum clear width of the stairway at and below the handrail height. That's below down here. Okay. Including treads and landings shall not be less than 31.5 inches. So if you don't have, okay, it says it right here, where handrails are installed on one side, so if you just come down a set of stairs and you have a wall on the other side, you don't need to have a rail on it, but you have to have 31.5 inches of clear space between the rail itself and the wall. Where handrails installed on one side, and 27 inches where the handrails are provided on both sides. So it needs to be greater than or equal to 27 inches in between the two handrails. Now this question comes around all the time because people will come to me and they'll say, well, I want to make a 3-foot set of stairs, and it's, you know, it's 4 feet high. Well, then once you put your railings in it, you're going to be
cramped
way less than the 27 inches. You'll be at like 22 inches.
That's interesting.
So boards come in 4-foot increments, so you might as well just make a stair that's 4 foot wide, and then by the time you have your rails done properly, you're at about 36 inches. So that's really how they want it.
That's interesting.
Okay, the minimum headroom. Let's get to the headroom picture right here. The minimum headroom in all parts of the stairway shall not be less than 6 foot 8 inches measured vertically and from the sloped line adjoining the nose or the tread nose from the floor surface to the landing or platform. So this photo here just shows that anywhere, the landing, you have to go 6 foot 8 inches. You don't want to hit the top there. And on your landing on the bottom, you have to be able to go 6 foot 8 inches without anything being there. You need clear 6 foot 8 inches for this to work. There is often a general expectation in deck construction that stairways must be at least 36 inches wide. While this width would certainly provide a nice, comfortable stairway, one that is easy to move your patio furniture up, it is not a minimum requirement. A width of 36 inches is required, but not always at foot level. Up in the upper part that it is. Generally speaking, our upper bodies are wider than our lower bodies, except for in Matt's case. We need room for our shoulders and arms to swing around and carry items as we walk, but our legs are usually narrower and move in a straight line. It has been considered in the IRC and is reflected in the minimum requirements. Okay, although the code does not require a handrail on each side of a residential stairway, unless of course it drops off. You can't, if you're, and we'll get that into when we do our show on railings. Anything over 30 inches has to have a rail. On each side of the residential stairways, if 2 handrails are installed, 1 on each side, then the widths of the stair treads and landings can be reduced to as little as 27 inches. Generally speaking, it is better to provide a full 36-inch width for the entire height of the stairway, as handrail design does not always work out as planned when it comes to incorporating them into the guard assembly. Now that's what that statement there is how Glenn did such a great job with this book, because he took a horribly difficult to read book that was this thick and he changed it into something that's of course thinner and easily manageable.
Makes it easy to consume. A lot like what we do here at the Deck Network. We take a lot of these complex sorts of things and we break it down to layman's terms.
Here's the most important one, and that people are always asking about this, or they think that they know the answer to this one, and that is riser height.
Okay.
The maximum riser height shall be 7 3/4 inches, not 8 inches and not 8 1/4 inches. The riser shall be measured vertically between the leading edge of the adjacent tread. That's right here.
That's where the measurement.
The greatest riser height within any flights of the stair shall not exceed the smallest one by 3/8 of an inch.
So that's the variance you can have on it?
Yeah, so one of my friends is a deck builder, and I was, and he put some pictures.
One of your friends, like 1,000 of your friends are deck builders. This guy knows everybody.
And he had this picture on Facebook, and I looked at it and I said, looks great, but this one looks about the same as this one, and this one the same, but this one looks about an inch shorter than the other one. So you're more or greater than that 3/8 of an inch variance. Because remember, you're walking up the stairs and you're
going to be
subconsciously,
tripping. Next thing you know, you're coming up, and next thing you know, you're getting caught on that thing.
Yes.
Reminds me of my 10th grade girlfriend.
Yes.
One leg was longer than the other. I could never figure it out.
Eileen, is that her name?
Hello. She worked at IHOP.
Okay, so we have, if these are 7 inches or even 8 inches, so there's 1, 2, 3, that's 24, that's probably 6 or 7, so you're up to 30 inches. This should be real on that also.
Okay, so there's a couple of issues with that. It looks pretty, but sometimes I like the way that he had them laid out, kind of like that with the
a little octagonal method.
Octagonal action going on there.
Tread depth. The minimum tread depth shall be 10 inches. The tread depth shall be measured horizontally between the vertical planes of the foremost projection of adjacent treads at a right angle. Again, that's getting going. That's kind of technical there. The greatest tread depth within any flight of stairs shall not exceed the smallest by any more than 3/8 of an inch, just like the other one, meaning that you have to have, when you're walking up the stairs, your mind wants to know that this tread is going to be, your rise is going to be there, and your tread was going to be about that depth. So it's about 10 inches, which if we have 2 pieces of decking, that always comes up to about 11 1/4 inches, so we're all set with that.
This is some in-depth stuff here, man. Think about that. Playing into what your brain is calculating where the next step is going to be has to come into the design element of your stairs.
Yep.
This is phenomenal stuff.
Okay, while it is not ideal, I'll try to find, I have one more picture that I want to show on this.
And this is in depth here, so if you have any questions about this, email Mike at the Deck Network, Matt at the Deck Network, and we'll answer, we'll expand on any of this information.
While it is not ideal, a stairway that consists of 2 flights of stairs divided by a landing can have dramatically different riser heights and tread depths between the two. So that means that this one could have a riser height of 7 inches with a tread depth of 14 inches, but this one here could have a 6-inch rise and a tread difference that varies. It is assumed that the rhythm created by the stair riser can be interrupted by the landing, and a new rhythm will begin on the next stair. But anyone who's built any kind of set of stairs like this, just make them all the same. I mean, it's not that difficult to do that correctly. And then we go into, unlike commercial stairs, there is no minimum riser height for the IRC step. There is only a maximum. A riser cannot exceed 7 3/4 inches, but could be as little as 2 inches or less. Shallow risers are design flexibility afforded by the IRC, but anything less than the commercial minimum of 4 inches, as provided by the IBC, International Building Code, that's for commercial.
A lot of acronyms flying around here.
May be a trip hazard if not easily distinguishable as a step. That's important right there, but it gives you, that's design
That's the
flexibility.
definition of a step.
It's not, they don't, we'll see it further with landings. There are certain things that are strictly enforced and some of these things that are not as strictly enforced. Winder treads, are a bit different, as there are 2 tread depth measurements that must be considered. And we get into, I have my picture out front here. At the narrowest edge of the winder tread, the side of the tread the stair turns toward, a minimum of 6-inch depth must be provided. So this is almost 10 inches right there, so that's more than enough. This step is not just minimum and does not have to have uniformity in relation to the other treads. The tread depth of the wider tread is measured at a point. The tread depth of a winder tread is measured at a point 10 inches from the narrower edge of the tread within the clear width of the stairs. So you don't go to the end of the stairs, you go inside the rail, which, as you can see, I was taking this measurement 10 inches from the narrow edge of within the clear width of the stairs and the level of the treads, and it needs to be the 10 inches, and this one here is about 12 inches, so we exceed the necessary parameters for a winder stair.
And that's important because
Yeah.
you know you could look great, but if it's not done right, what's it good for?
Okay. And he talks about little helpful hints that are needed for. Now there's always an edge, and this is, I never really knew this, but Glenn likes to talk about it here. It says you need a nosing, and it always looks better. You always need to have some sort of reveal. The required geometry of stairs is explained further in this section. The leading edge of a stair tread is referred to as the nosing. However, at the top of the stair, the landing or floor surface must provide the nosing for the stair. As you see right on top of here, this is the top of the deck, and you can have a stair there, and there's some reasons for that. Often, when ascending stairs, people place the balls of their feet on or near the nosing, and a significant bevel or radius can cause the foot to slip off the tread. So that's why it has requirements, the maximum radius, and also the maximum. If you cut it off with a, just put it on a table saw and cut it off in a 45, it has to have a maximum of a ½ an inch. When the overall height of a flight of stairs exceeds 30 inches, that means that you have to have a rail on it. It has to be what's called a child, or it is a height that necessitates a childproof rail.
Makes sense.
Okay. When the overall height of a flight of stairs exceeds 30 inches, regardless of the number of individual risers, the risers are required to prevent the passage of a 4-inch sphere. That means when we do the show on railings, your railings have to be less than 4 inches. So usually they're at like 3 7/8. So anywhere on that deck, you can't fit a 4-inch sphere. So
Take a handball or something.
well, it's going to be larger than that. 4 inches across, if you can fit that in, and babies when they're born, they got to have that size or bigger than that.
They're coming out already.
They're never going to be.
That makes sense. What about like small dogs and stuff like that? You got to worry about them, or they're on their own?
I don't think that that's under the jurisdiction of the International Building Code.
That might be
that's a personal thing for the dogs. So then we get into risers here, and of course a riser always looks better than an open stair. In the old days, we used to build the stairs out of treated wood, and we used to leave them open. Of course, no one ever said anything, but it looks good. But we always know that you could get snow buildup, and in our area, we certainly know about that. And Glenn also states that in regions that receive snowfall, solid risers can create a dangerous condition if snow is not cleared and is packed into the inside corners of the risers and treads. For stairs with a total height of 30 inches or less, the IRC does not require risers that prohibit the passing of a 4-inch diameter sphere. For stairs greater than 30 inches above grade, a more slender riser board held 3 3/8 inches. If you could put just a smaller riser board in here, above the stair tread below, can be used to both reduce the opening size while allowing room for snow to pass through.
Is that like a weep hole?
No, weep holes are for water to go through.
I thought I had the right term, Mike. I was just trying my best, man.
So, I read this. I've seen it in plans before, but this is something that you never see that's usually enforced. So
what's that?
It's the landing at the bottom of the stairs.
Okay.
And as Glenn says here, the landing at the bottom of this stairway is compliant and required. And while it could be argued as excessive, it is merely the result of an aggressively designed stairway. So you have to have a landing, and then there's parameters on the landing and the pitch and all that type of stuff. But this is, I guess there's a lot of legality to it.
Didn't realize there's so much that applied to putting the stairs on the deck, Mike.
Yeah, well, it's in
a lot of ins and outs here, but it's good that we're covering it all.
You can thank your local lawyer probably, and that's the reason why. Now here's a good one right here.
Okay.
Stairway illumination. All interior and exterior stairways shall be provided with means to illuminate the stairs, including the landings and treads. Exterior stairways shall be provided with an artificial light source located in the intermediate or immediate vicinity of the top landing of the stairway. And so this picture that Glenn has in here, it has riser going up, and they're not on every step because they probably don't need it, but you can see it up closely. There is a light here and another light here.
Stairs are inherently dangerous, and therefore the means to illuminate them completely may help inhibit an after-dark slip and fall and injury. When low-voltage lights are installed throughout the stairway as means to illuminate, at least one light fixture must be placed at the top landing. You see there's two right here. There may even be another one right there. So lights are code now. Many low-voltage transformers allow multiple settings of the timer and photocell in combination and can be set to turn the lights on and off after a predetermined period of time. While this saves on electricity of running lights throughout the entire night, it does not satisfy the IIC requirements. Motion sensors can also be used that would turn the lights on automatically when sensing a stair user's approach to either a top or bottom landing. The intent of this section is to allow someone to illuminate the stair at any hour of the night, either from inside the dwelling or automatically. All right, that is the end of Glenn's part of it. Now we're going to talk about stairs and how we kind of build them. Stairs, if you want to see more about, okay, I like hardware. You need hardware.
Part of the
build
game.
the decks. If you're not using hardware, or if you're a contractor says, I'm not using any hardware, well then find a different contractor, because you just can't nail wood together. Wood moves around, temperature, expansion and contraction, thawing, freezing. It's the connections get weaker over time. So
Has hardware always been there, Mike? 30 years ago.
Oh,
people
no.
nailing them. That was it.
Yeah, we were using joist hangers, but we never had anything like these.
Okay.
And then, when decks start falling, they start figuring out why, and then they
Good folks
start
over at
using-
Simpson, they start doing the research.
So down here at the store downstairs, we have a little display with our hardware on stairs. And if you want to see more about it, there's a Deck Network show in the library about hardware that Matt and I did, I don't know, last year sometime.
There's a ton of great videos
Yes.
in there.
And-
Hard to choose just one.
And a lot of times people will say, well, they want to save money. Well, in this particular case, it costs less to do it correctly.
So why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Because
Like, come
this
on,
part
make
here,
you
this
drink.
stringer strap, $1.49, and look, it has all these holes in it. What happened to our nail?
You put it in the book, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So we have four holes here and 4 holes there, there and there. If they're 1,000 pounds each, that's 8,000 pounds, and then you have a 4-foot wide stair. We like to put them 1 foot on center to make them stronger. You can put a lot of weight on that.
Yep.
It's not going anywhere. But then what's to hold the rest of this from breaking apart or falling over time? That's why we have these straps here. These, again, $1.50. You put a few on each side, on the back side, and you get yourself an inexpensive way of really holding your stairs together.
Build it right. Do it the first time right. Put a couple extra bucks into it. Here you're talking about $1.50
There we
each. Come
see these nails on here, and
that.
they're not sheetrock screws or roofing nails. They are approved joist hanger nails because an engineer has calculated the strength that it takes to shear it off.
Which is on or around 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, something in that thing. But stairs are kind of fun. I used to like making them. They take a lot of time. It's the focal point a lot of times of the deck, because sometimes you could have these real nice octagonal stairs, and people sit on them.
You're
you
hanging
have plants on them.
Yep.
Yeah, not just people
maybe
falling on them or people trip on them.
Or maybe people puking on them
Yeah,
or something.
okay.
You know?
So at the bottom of the stair, you're usually gonna put a railing sometimes, and it's always helpful to block it in. You just don't put 2 or 3 toenails in it. These things are gonna get weaker over time. The wood frames, even if it feels strong, when this deck is done in 10 years, it could be wobbly.
It's gonna be like a
So
loose
that's
tooth.
why use the hardware.
Build it right. It's going to last forever. It's going to look great. You're already in the right place because you started here at the Deck Network, so you're getting the information you need, but you got to apply it. What good are these videos if people aren't bringing this out into the field, Mike? We can only take you so far.
Okay. Well, if you have any questions or comments, you can write me at mike@thedecknetwork.com or
Matt at the Deck Network. Keep all the technical questions to Mike. Send me the fun stuff. Come on, let's keep it fun. Let's keep it entertaining.
okay.
All right?
And ciao for now.
Beep, beep. That's all, folks.
That's all, folks.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Throw it. There you go. I didn't want to.